Hi, I'm Diana, and this is Shannon, and we're Pretired. We started this blog because 4 years ago we were working over 60 hours a week, chained to our business, and with no flexibility or freedom. So we decided that what we built, we could actually tear down and rebuild, and now we're living our dream. We have flexibility and freedom, and we're traveling with our families, not flamlies, but families for 4 months at a time while we continue to run our two businesses. So thank you for sharing this journey with us. And today we're going to continue our talk about the 5 fears people have about working from anywhere. Shannon, let's share our experience with the 4th fear, which is how on earth do I travel with kids, especially toddlers.
Especially toddlers.
So we both love this one. Let's provide you with some context on it. Last year I traveled for 4 months through Australia, and I had a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. We stayed in 24 different places and traveled with only 2 suitcases. And we only packed one favorite stuffy, their favorite blanket, and books, a little like Mr. Men-sized books. And also, to provide you some context during the trip, we weaned my daughter off of the bottle. We dealt with my son's start of wonderful temper tantrums and potty training, and Julia's insane car sickness. And it was so awesome that we're starting to plan our next 4-month trip.
Do it all over again.
Yeah.
So my experience was not quite as extreme as Diana's. I only have one child, luckily. So my husband and 18-month-old son and I traveled for 2 months last winter to learn to surf. And we traveled throughout Costa Rica to go to all sorts of different beaches. And during that time, we actually slept in the same room as my son for 2 months straight. And we literally spent every waking moment with the child. Like, talk about quality time. You can't really beat that. We took a similar approach because we had read that it was a good idea to really limit things. We were trying to be really minimalist. We only brought 2 backpacks. So we only took a few blocks for him because he loves blocks. We took some flashcards. He was learning letters at the time and numbers, and a few small books, so similar to like little Mr. Men size. And we even, totally by mistake, only took 1 sippy cup. And somehow I kept that sippy cup for 2 months, and I was so proud of myself. But the minimalist approach really turned out to be the right one, I think, for both of us, hey?
Yeah, absolutely, Shannon, absolutely. And we're going to go through some tips from our experience, so some toddler traveling tips. And but first, just a couple of reminders about kids that we wanted to bring up. Kids are as resilient as you are, believe it or not.
Or so.
Yeah, no, exactly. Actually, good point. They're very adaptable. They sense your anxiousness, and they will have rough days traveling just as they do at home. And the example that comes to mind here is my husband and I wanted to and had planned and dreamed of visiting one of the top 10 beaches in the world. And it was absolutely spectacular and gorgeous. And we'd read about it and planned our trip so that we could get there. So we traveled by boat, traveled by another little boat, and then another boat to get to this beach. And it was spectacular. Absolute paradise. And do you know what our son had? A temper tantrum. On the most beautiful place in the world, he had a temper tantrum on the beach. Keep in mind, there are no buildings there. So we're out on the beach. And if you think trying to give a timeout in a grocery store is easy, try giving a timeout to a 3-year-old on a beautiful beach where everybody is trying to relax and enjoy paradise. So the point, I guess, is that this will happen anywhere and everywhere, just as it does at home, but you have to parent everywhere you go to. So, yeah. Shannon has no comment at all.
I have no comment. I don't have nothing to say. Nothing. You covered it. Yep. Why don't we move on to the actual 5 main tips that we have, though?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first tip we've highlighted on the top 5 toddler traveling tips at night. We travel with 2 medium-sized suitcases. And the next tip is to create toys out of everyday items. So we use milk jugs, egg cartons. We bought gelato at one of the places in town, and they turned into gecko catching cups and lasted us for 4 months. So you never know.
Just a note on this as well. We found that there were a few toys that we actually needed while we were there, so like beach toys. We bought those in Costa Rica, and then we actually left them with the local kids when we left, and that was a really nice thing to be able to do. We didn't have to schlep it back and forth on the plane, which was great, and it was a nice lesson for our son too. So
I love that, Shannon. That's great.
So the third one is keep a routine. So this one seems impossible, and I was actually really skeptical about how we were going to do this when we left. But it is possible. So an example of that is that you can always keep the same bedtime routine no matter where you are, because you still have to go through the same process. So if you get jammies on and read a book and sing a song and then put him in bed, then just do that every single night no matter where you are. And that's really enough for kids. And there's some other, I think products that you can use to help in that as well, but we'll get to that in a bit later. And then the fourth one is to use your surroundings. So this really is taking advantage of the fantastic places that you are. And we, especially in Costa Rica, found that this was awesome and hilarious in most cases, because there was so much wildlife that was literally like right at our door all the time that Cade was always really focused and busy with it. So for instance, every night we came home at one of the locations we were at, he would look forward to hunting for the geckos. There was all these tiny geckos that lived in the light sconces, and he would love to do that. He literally made friends with 2 large iguanas. Like, I'm talking, twice as big as that.
I can't even fit it in
I can't fit it in. So big iguanas. And he would chase them into their little holes, and then they'd peek their heads out and chase them again, and he had so much fun doing that. We had howler monkeys that lived right outside of our window, so that was a source of endless fascination, though very intimidating at the same time. So he really liked it, but was kind of scared of it all at the same time. But really just using all of those moments to really teach them about animals and their built-in entertainment. The fifth one, the last one, is make it familiar. So again, had no idea how we were going to approach this, but we actually found a really lightweight travel bed that helped us a lot in this regard. And it's called a pea pod. And essentially it's like a little tent, a baby tent. And it really created Cade's space. So wherever we were, when he was in that tent, he felt safe, and he felt like he was in a familiar place because we had used it extensively before we left on the trip as well. And it really, by the way, made me feel very good as well, because there were lots of critters in Costa Rica, and it had this nice little zipper. So I zipped him in at night and knew that nothing was going to be crawling in there with him. But those kind of things, it's almost like a dog crate. Like they are safe and familiar. It's true. It's the same thing as puppy training. They're safe and familiar in that place because that's where they've always had. So totally recommend that product. On that note, there are a couple of other products I just want to mention as well because they were essential. One for us was the Ergo Baby Carrier. And the reason why this specifically was such an issue for us is because it was light and it was breathable. It's cotton. It was literally 40 degrees, and I'm schlepping around a 35-pound thing on my back in the form of a toddler. But it was, durable enough and still really comfortable that it totally worked. One other thing in terms of airports, our son likes to run around. I was really freaked out about this. So we had to bring our car seat anyway. So we got this thing called a Go-Go Babies. It essentially makes your car seat into a stroller. We'll have a link to it at the bottom of this, but it essentially makes your car seat into it's like a dolly system. So we'd strap him into the car seat, and this would roll through the airports. And I would know that there's no way he would be running away because he was happy to be sitting in his seat because it was like he was in a stroller. So that was fantastic as well.
Because you didn't take your stroller with you, did you, Shannon?
No, we didn't take the stroller. Yeah. We just took the Ergo and this. Because where we were going, you couldn't really use strollers. So. So those are some awesome carriers, but I actually, Diana, had a question for you specifically that I've been wondering since you got back, and I don't know why I haven't asked you before, but now seems
so
like
ask me now.
So one of the issues that we found to be one of the most challenging things in terms of traveling with Cade was that we had absolutely no alone time. Like I said, we literally spent every second with that child, and while it was great, it was also really challenging. So how did you guys deal with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seriously, Shannon, this is a great. Actually, this one's really interesting because it took us 3 weeks into our trip to figure this out, And what we did is we have a Phil and Ted stroller, so both kids fit in the stroller back in front. And what we would do is when it was bedtime, we would go through our bedtime routine, but instead of going into bed, we would actually put them into the stroller, and we would go for an evening walk with them. So we would head out, and my husband and I would walk for anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it was our perfect alone time, believe it or not. So the kids slept in the stroller, and we were either getting our exercise, taking in the new town or city or place or wherever we were. And actually we had a beautiful dinner at a restaurant, a gorgeous restaurant. I actually took some special shoes with me, so we were walking for a while, and then I switched into proper attire for the restaurant, but the kids slept through that. And then we also had a couple of times we had a beautiful picnic on the beach. We actually had dinner as the two of us and the kids were sleeping. So it was absolutely perfect. And then we would do the transfer when we got home. So you have to, my advice there is that be creative and think outside the box in terms of what it takes for you to use what you've got in order to get some of that alone time, because that is definitely a challenge. I didn't feel comfortable hiring a babysitter or anything like that. That wasn't even an option for me. So,
well, that's fantastic. That's a great idea. Totally way to think outside of the box. That's awesome. Thank you.
So the Phil and Ted stroller and then the other products that we talked about, we're actually going to provide links to those products if anybody's interested. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.